this month's pickup lab could almost be entitled Life Lab rather than Pickup Lab because it's not pickup related. And that's actually the point, okay? There comes a time in your study of game or your practice of game, because game should be practice, not study, right? There comes a time when the limiting factor on your success is no longer your ability with women, all right? And I've had these moments many, many times. One of the most poignant ones for me was actually the first time I lived in New York. It was about 2006. I was dating 9 different girls, staying in Midtown Manhattan. And when I moved to New York, I had a budget, right? I thought I was going to make X amount of dollars. And it was right around the when things started going south a little bit financially and things went a little south with the company at the same time. I ended up making a third as much as I had budgeted to make. So money was really, really tight, and I was basically running out of money. So I was dating these 9 girls, had this great life, running out of money. And I was super stressed, kind of hating it. And I realized that the thing, if I wanted to keep my 9 girlfriends or improve even upon that, it wasn't that I needed more game, is that I needed more money. I needed more financial success. I needed more to have my shit together in other areas of life. And so game was no longer the limiting factor for me, right? It was interesting for me because I had come from a paradigm growing up where I was always the kid earmarked to be successful, but who wasn't good with girls. And so at that point, my life success was always in my favor, and the game ability was the thing holding me back. And you're gonna go through these cycles, right? You're gonna go through these cycles where there are different things holding you back, right? If you work on your appearance and get that really good, it's no longer holding you back. Then you get your game really good, but then you're in higher end venues, higher levels. Maybe you got to work on your fashion even more, right? Or maybe your money's good, your game gets really good. Now you're going after the 9s and the 10s. You're competing with billionaires. Now you don't have to be a billionaire, but it helps to at least not be a scrub in terms of finance. And so I want you to really think when you look at your game in your life and ask yourself this, within the scope of game, right? Within your game, what is the limiting factor, right? Is the limiting factor you're good with getting the girls attracted, but you're having trouble pulling? Well, there's a limiting factor there. Is it that you're good at getting numbers, but you're tough with the follow-up and you're losing girls there? That's the limiting factor. And where you're losing girls is the limiting factor. This idea of the limiting factor can be taken even further. Outside of game, you can take it to life in general and say, what is it in my life that's limiting my success with girls? Now, that's a little difficult because, again, look at my success with girls when I was back in New York dating the 9 girls. Looked like I was very successful with girls. So I was like, what's my limiting factor? Fucking nothing, I'm crushing it, right? But there was a limiting factor, and that was my ability to sustain it. It was also my ability to get access to the hottest and most high-end girls because social connections and money will buy you into those situations or get you into those situations where you might otherwise not be there. And so that's sort of like the silent limiting factor. You think you're doing well, but you look at what's actually possible. And a lot of guys are just happy. They're dating, a few cute girls or just even one cute girl, and they're just happy and they're content, that's fine. But if you are very ambitious and you want the absolute hottest girls or the absolute best girl for you or whatever, or you just want to know that you want to kind of be at the highest levels of game, at some point there will be a money and social status factor. And so that is something you want to work on, and be aware that at a certain point, I look at sort of every skill, there's a math idea called an asymptote. It's like at first you're rapidly increasing, and then you increase slower and slower and slower and slower and slower and slower. And it's like with any skill set, there's a maximum that you can achieve with that skill set. So say if this asymptote to the maximum right here, going up, going up, going up, going up, and then over time, you'll never quite reach it. You'll get very, very close to that level. You'll never quite reach it. But you'll definitely never go beyond that level, right? If you want to go beyond that level, you need to come up with a new model, or you need to incorporate another factor that can take you to that next level. And a lot of times in game, that is something outside of game, like your social situation or your financial situation. Just to kind of hammer this point home one last time, you'll notice the view behind me. This is the view from the rooftop of where me and the crew are running things in New York. And I will tell you, living in New York, having a rooftop is very, very, very valuable, to the point where before we had the rooftop, we had a rooftop we could kind of get access to by sneaking through the emergency door, and we would sell it as rooftop in order to take the girls home. And even when they closed the emergency door, I would still use rooftop, knowing full well that we get blocked at the emergency door and could no longer get through it. And they'd be like, oh, it wasn't like that anymore, and take the girl back downstairs at that point because it was just that useful. So now that we actually have a rooftop, things are so much better. and we've only been here a couple days, already my assistants are telling me how easy it's been living in the area we do and having that rooftop, how compliant the girls are when you just explain it. In fact, they've been doing things that are technically game mistakes when they've been bringing girls back home, but it's actually been working in their favor. So the point here is look at game and look at life through this guise of like, what is the limiting factor, and work on your limiting factor. Because if you're in that asymptote, your game is sort of approaching a certain level, yeah, you can make these tiny incremental adjustments, but by incorporating a new area, a new sort of ideology, a new paradigm, a whole new skill set to go along with your game, you can get massively better results. And that's a much more effective way to make progress than the incremental progress of just sticking on this one skill set. Understand that there are all these related skill sets in life, game being one, social circle and like social situation being one, finance being one. You want to work on all of them, because if you neglect the social aspects, your game may not seem like it's suffering. It may seem like you're crushing it, but you have no idea how big you could be crushing it if you got that other thing working in your favor.